to A Well-Designed Business. My name is Luann Nigara, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company Window Works from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. Today's show is sponsored by the Interior Design Standard, which you know what that means. That means Sandra Funk is here. Yep, start doing your happy dance. You know when Sandra is here, she is going to blow your mind with her no-nonsense advice and strategies for running a happy, profitable design firm. And we are getting to see the inside scoop on the updates of the Interior Design Standard as well today. If you don't know who Sandra Funk is, then you must be new to the show. Sandra Funk is first my dear friend, a friendship born out of working together going back 10 years or more through her firm, the House of Funk, and my company, Window Works. With every project we did together, we continued to learn and appreciate each other's business acumen, each other's work ethic, and each other's genuine desire to be the best business person we could be for our companies. It was a match made in heaven. Secondly, she is the principal of House of Funk, which is now in New York, New Jersey, Tennessee, and all over the country, managing full-service luxury projects across the U.S. As for Sandra, as she calls them, her happy whales. Sandra's been on the show several times, and I've had dozens of you send me emails and DMs telling me how you've listened to her shows 2 and 3 times over. Her episodes are number 2, number 145, number 520, 585, and number 660. Do yourself a favor and start with episode number 2 and work your way through every one. Episode number 2 in particular has been downloaded and listened to more than 10,000 times as of today, okay? This lady brings the value every single time she's on the show. So, are you ready? Let's see what she has in store for us today. Hey, Sandra, thanks so much for joining me again on A Well-Designed Business.
Luann, thank you so much for having me. It's such a thrill.
Well, you know, I just love catching up with you in all the different ways. And one of the things that I have found so fascinating is that with all the experience that you have, 20 plus years under your belt, creating a major design firm, creating the Interior Design Standard, which is the standard for the industry, you've had a rather significant business aha in the last 6 or 7 months. And I'd love for you to share that with all of us today, please.
Awesome. So I will start with, if you haven't read Luann's article in Furniture, Lighting, and Decor magazine from September 2021, or listen to our episodes in the past, we talk a bit about them. But I had a dark night of the soul. I had kind of this unraveling in my design firm where a bunch of projects were falling apart, and I was not in a good place. Luann's wise counsel while we were flying back from an event was to look within, right? That it's when one difficult project happens, okay, these things happen. When multiple difficult projects are happening or falling apart, look within. There's more to the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at the time, I went back and I stopped everything and I think tanked my firm and I hired all the experts and the standard was born. But in the last couple of months, I've worked with some experts. I've really done some introspective. And what I've realized is that, when that happened, that was 2017. So I started my business in 2005. So this was well into me running my business. And I was thinking about it and I was like, well, what? It was all working before. What the hell happened, right? So what happened was I went from working with kind of mid-tier projects to, charging hourly, working on one or two or maybe three rooms, definitely doing some renovations in there, but I didn't really have project minimums. I didn't have, um, as far as scope or budget or house value or any of that. I just was kind of saying yes to projects if it felt right and if I felt like doing it and if I had time. And everything was hourly. I really didn't have a big concept there. So what changed in around 17 was I really started to bootstrap my way into larger projects, luxury projects. I'd, been reading the books and going to the conferences and listening to my mentors, and I was bootstrapping my way to luxury. But what I wasn't taking with me, or what I took with me and shouldn't have, was my good old fashioned regular business on the back end. And my good old fashioned regular business wasn't ready for the luxury market.
Mm.
And that's my biggest aha, is that I didn't change what I was doing. I changed my ideal client to a client that expected more from me, and that the stakes were higher, right? My hourly rate had gone up significantly. I'd gotten boutique space. My team had grown a ton. And I had big project minimums and big house value minimums. And all of a sudden, because I made a decision to move to those bigger, higher value projects, that's what I was getting, right? We get what we decide we want
Mm-hmm.
and we put out to the universe, but I didn't get my back end locked down. And so that's why I fell apart in 2017. But just that knowledge is just a whole different shift for me, that that's what happened.
So if I'm it's funny because if I'm hearing you correctly, I feel like we've had a similar shift at WindowWorks. Although I have to say I've know it's happening, I've felt it happening, and I've been saying it's happening. What it is for the similar shift for us is, running a $2.8 million business, and then in 2 years it's a $4.5 million and shooting to $6 million business. I've literally been walking around going, the systems that worked for a $2 million business are not supporting a $5 million business. Like, it just, you have to make changes in the way you do things. So for us, it was operational changes because the team got bigger and the communication. One of the hallmarks of WindowWorks has always been communication. You know that with us, right? And, keeping in
Absolutely.
communication with the designers, the clients. And now all of a sudden, when there's two or three people between you and the designer for communication, it was like, wait, didn't you tell her? I thought you told her. It was like, before I just looked in the mirror and said, I knew I told her, right? And so what you're saying, your analogy is that your fee structure, the process of catering and working with a luxury client needed to change because it's different than when you're working with a mid-level client.
That's exactly right. The stakes are so much higher, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, and I went back to like my example of, I was doing a landscape project and I was talking to the landscape architect, and then there's the person who's going to put the trees in the ground, there's a sprinkler guy, there's a lighting guy. Like, this can turn into a pretty hefty project. And I could see that, and I could see I needed to talk about who goes first and who does what and who's orchestrating it. And at the end of the day, what I needed to know, because I knew we were in the, you know, 5-figure range, I needed to know what that was going to be, right? I needed to hear from the landscape architect. I needed a quote from each of the side vendors. I needed to know the timeline. I needed to know all of that before I was willing to sign off on anybody. And that's the idea behind like that strategic pricing, is that when you go into that higher range and into that luxury market, you can't just say my hourly rate is X and we'll just see where it takes us, because they know that they're in a 6 or 7 figure project and we'll see where it takes us does not work,
Mm.
right? It's just the stakes are too high.
Right, because they want to have an idea of where they want to have an idea where they're going, and hey, we'll figure it out when we get there. Doesn't fly. It's too much money. The budgets are too big, and to your point, the stakes are too high.
The stakes are too high. And also, the biggest shift, right, is when you can say, we're looking at design fees of X, we're looking at a furnishings investment of Y, and then we're going to have the contractors or the builders come in with their Z number, right? And that's going to make up your total project budget. When we do that before we even sign a contract, we become just such the trusted expert, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
we have educated them and we've brought them in and we've shared our knowledge with them. And we've also given them an incredible amount of decision making power. We've empowered them with all the real, true information and also timeline, right? Not just numbers, but also a realistic timeline of what it's going to take. And when I give a potential client all of that information, I look like a rock star and they can actually make a decision that we then stick to.
So let me kind of see if I'm grabbing this. So what you're saying is that when you started to do more luxury projects and things are coming onto into the scope like the landscape architecture, like your example, in
Mhm.
your old way of pricing you wouldn't have foreseen that, you didn't plan for that, because in the mid-tier market that what really didn't fall under your venue so much. So when you were using your old way of pricing, now you're getting into the meat of the project and you're being asked to consult and provide direction on landscape architecture, and you're thinking to yourself, I'm not making any money because I just spent all those hours on that and I didn't charge for it in my packaging, my pricing. Is that what you mean by this, like how the before and after wasn't working?
No, no, no. So when I was talking about the landscape architecture, that was just an example of like when I did a personal project that I knew was going to be a big budget project, I, as a homeowner, needed
Oh.
to have an exam. I needed to understand my big budget and my big timeline. And so that really informed the client centric mindset of
Mm.
like every single thing that happens in the design project from initial call to wrap up gift has to be put yourself in your client's shoes and think about it from their perspective. And
Mm-hmm.
when I was having this transition from doing it the old way, just fly by the seat of my pants, just doing designs best I could, to systematizing strategic pricing, and a client-centric mindset. The three pillars that I think of the transition from luxury. I was personally doing a landscape architecture project, and
Mm.
I kept using that as my benchmark. Like,
Mm.
no, I'm not going to sign off on the lighting guy until I know how much the
Now I get it.
guy is gonna cost. Yeah.
Right.
So that was my like
Right.
pull together.
Right. Well, and it's funny because I have to say, in a lot of the conversations over the years on the podcast, I've expressed exactly that. It's like, if as a designer you're upset because somebody doesn't want to pull the trigger on part of a project, but you haven't informed me of what I can expect down the road, it's exactly that. It's, I need to know exactly what I'm facing. I can't say if I want an exterior lighting package of $10,000 if the pavers are going to be $45,000. Maybe I've got to spend $30,000 on pavers and $15,000 on lighting. Like, I need to run my numbers, and I can't give you a yes along the way without knowing the future, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And I think and really big part of the standard is that we are looking at the projects as a whole. And so we're pricing them as a whole. We're looking at timelines as a whole. We're doing our design fees as a whole. And that is all set up on purpose. That strategic pricing is set up to give the clients the ultimate control over their decision making of if they want to do the project or not. And then I'm telling you, when it's done this way, and I've been doing it this way since 17 or 18 when I finally got it actually happening,
Mm-hmm.
smooth. Like
Mm.
everything is so smooth because we've had really honest, concrete, fully educated conversations up front, and then everything is always referencing back to that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just conversations, it's now built into my design agreement. It's in the contract.
Mm-hmm. So I have a question for you. I know that what designers struggle with when they're going through that transition, when they're going from, hey, I'm doing a room or two, to having those project minimums, as you discussed,
Mhm.
and getting the realistic budget together, the realistic investment together for the client so that they can sign off on it and you all know where you're going. The question is, it's so typical for a contractor to provide the cost budget. But, maybe they're allowing for 8 hi-hats in the entire first floor, and you need 20 hi-hats, or they're allowing for $4 a square foot in tile, and the person, with the way they live now, it's going to be a $12 a square foot for tile, or they're allowing for, I don't know, quartz, and you want marble. So
Mm-hmm.
the idea is, what I often hear is, when the contractor gives a budget of his work and it comes in at, say, 200K, I know it's going to be 300K because I've been to this person's home and I know the type of things they're talking about. But how do they, the nudge in there before you own it is, I've had designers say to me, well, I can't ask the contractor to do a realistic budget based on real things because I'm not going to sit there and design in the real things before I get the sign off on it. And when the contractor says the budget's 200 and I want to tell the client, actually, it's going to be 3, they push me back and think I'm just trying to up it. So how do you, I know that as a luxury
Mm-hmm.
designer, you do it, but how do you do it?
Sure. So I have a conversation with the clients and the contractor right from the beginning, and I let them know, especially if I'm hired first and I'm bringing the contractor in, I let the contractor know, take out the allowances. That's all going to be reflected in my budget. So
Mm.
I don't want a tile allowance. I don't want blah blah blah. And then I review his bid, and I'll go in and say, okay, I see 8 hi-hats. What I really need is 30, 4-inch LEDs. Um, and I will kind of skim his budget ballpark before I have him give it to the clients, just to make sure that we're speaking apples to apples. I
Okay.
also do a high level request for quote on the client's behalf to the general contractor, where I specify a high level ballpark number of hi hats, the spec I want for that. I'll specify, this is, maybe it's going to be wide plank hardwood flooring if that's something that the contractor typically specifies. And I'll say Starfire extra thick shower glass if I want to make sure that he's not given the slim budget, he's given the good budget, on those things that I know the contractor provides. But on anything that I'm going to provide, I say take out those allowances because they will not match my budget. They will be so undercut.
Mm. Okay. So, and that becomes, I imagine that's part of the interior design standard where you have part of your process where, like you just mentioned, the type of glass doors, the type of hardwood flooring, like the things that the contractor is more likely to provide within their quote, but the places that without clarity the contractor could provide something as part of the quote that's nowhere near the price of what will ultimately go in. So you
Hmm.
have this list of, whether it's 5 items, 10 items, 12 items, that you are saying, here, like I know when you do it with window works, it's like, Lou, I want drapes, I want them lined, I want them interlined, I want this kind of pleat, I want that kind of hem. Whether you haven't even picked the fabrics yet, and you're just like,
Right.
give me all the bells and whistles, right?
Yes.
We can take away some bells and whistles if we decide to go with shears unlined, right?
Yep. Yeah, but give it to me bougie so I can budget for that. And if it flies, awesome. And if it doesn't fly, we revise,
Right.
right?
You know where you can pull away. Like, you might never suggest that somebody do a thinner shower glass door, but you might say we can do sheer draperies here and that saves $1,000. You know what I mean, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You got
Okay.
to know where you can pull your levers and still end up with a great design.
Okay. And so, and then what, I mean, I'm sure that there's designers listening that are thinking, my contractor would never pull out those other specifications. They would say, no, 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 I have to be the one, to sell this or quote this. So does it matter if they, like, for instance, tile, you're like, pull the tile out. I'm going to go
Mhm.
specify tile. You're never going to, put enough money in for tile for me to be able to design the way I want. Is it that you're like saying to that builder, I'm buying tile? Or are you saying, whether you buy it or I buy it, I just don't want the budget screwed up because of your low balling on it?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the conversations to always have. So sometimes you're going to get in a situation where the builder's been hired and you're brought in to design, right? So now
Yeah.
you don't have the upper hand. You don't have the right to kind of say, "No, I've got tile." you
Right.
know. So, okay, whoever gets to the project first is, captain. Let's think of it that way. And so then you go in with that builder and you say, okay, what do you prefer to provide? I'm going to pick up the rest, right? Um, and then you want to walk through those allowances and have a really open conversation, because again, if you're coming in later to the party, that allowance budget has probably already been presented to the client. So you
Mm-hmm.
need to sit down with the contractor and the client and talk through that budget and say, listen, I see we're budgeted this. Um, I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to need to make something a little bit more special here or there, or this is going to look like a spec house, because this is spec house pricing, right?
Mm.
This is what a contractor would put in, given their own left to their own devices. So we're going to upgrade the lighting, or we're going to upgrade the tile. But where do you want to see that budget increased? Where do you want to be a feature? And so you don't go in there and just say, no, this isn't going to work. I need everything much more. It's a little bit more of a delicate dance. But
Mm.
where do we want to feature something special? Where do we want to invest a little bit more in this project here and there? And it makes such a big difference.
And have you ever had? I'm going really in the weeds because I know you have the depth of experience, so it's a rare opportunity for me. Have you ever, not that you're the only one experienced, but I know you're experienced. You know what
Yes.
I mean? So it's like, oh, I can keep asking. So have you ever had a situation where you have said, like, I can see that conversation. It's like, oh, I've been brought to the party after the fact. The builder, the contractor has already provided a budget, because look, the client isn't coming to look for a designer until they've already figured out how much the house is going to cost to build, probably. So no wonder there's a budget there for it. But when you do that conversation, when you review it and you say, where do you want to do something special, like you just said, or it's going to look like a spec house, do you have you had situations where you felt like you said it as respectfully as possible, and either the client bristled at it or the builder bristled at it and said, what are you talking about? This is not a spec house, project. You know what I'm saying? Like real life pushback. Do you get it? And then how do you
Hmm.
bounce back from it?
Well, and that is precisely why I like to have that conversation before I sign my design agreement, because I
Mm.
need to know, um, if they're looking for, and again, post, you know, later, the second half of my design career, I was really looking to work with clients that truly valued interior design, that valued my time and opinion, that wanted to live in an incredible luxury, highly designed home. So if they're bristling at that, or if they're, nope, we're going to stick to the budget as planned, then we might not be a fit, right?
Mm.
And that's maybe a red flag. That's maybe a time to call out. Similarly, with the contractors, if there's any bristling or issues with that, I mean, you know, and it's not to be offensive to say it's a spec house. It's to just say, you know, if we're going to look and do special and do upgrades, where is that? So I think the bristling and the pushback would be a conversation and would just continue on, but it would also be informing me.
I love that. I love that answer because it's so true. And here's the nuance, and I hope you listening heard it. The conversation is happening before the agreement is signed.
Hmm.
It's not, oh, I'll just deal with this, this builder budget spec house situation after I've got the signed contract, and then I'll explain to them why. Because again, what we always say here, right? If you give me all the facts ahead of time and I still go into the agreement with you, now it's on me, right?
Yep.
And I love the fact that if either the client or the builder is not on board with, if we've all had this situation. I have it even with window treatments, right? We all have this situation where someone is saying, I want bespoke, right?
Yes.
But the thing that they're showing you as an example, you're like, well, sweetie, it's not
Yeah.
really bespoke. Like, it's pretty, but no, right? Or I want the most luxurious. And it's like, okay, that's beautiful. We're not going to say it's not, but that is not the most luxurious. And so that is the perfect time for you to find out that maybe this is not a right fit. I love it because if you describe it and they say, oh, no, I get it. Oh, yeah, you're right. what else do we have to allow to make the primary suite more luxurious, or we wanted to upgrade in the downstairs, we wanted to have a full bar, or blah blah blah. Now, to your point, you're working with the right client. But if they're all pushing back, I love that you're able to, because you're pre-contract, to say, I might not be the designer for you. Right.
Exactly. Yeah, and
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the kindest and gentlest way, but and I've found my voice to be able to say, with a little chuckle, like, "Oh, well, you're talking to someone who just naturally upgrades. So, if you really want to keep it to this budget, I can imagine there's going to be some friction in working together, because I'm just naturally going to want to show you, options and beautiful things and ways to make this more special, and that does come with a cost."
Mm. And when you've said that, have you ever had somebody say, well, we still want to work with you, but we want to stay in this budget? And then you have to say it again?
Yeah. But I'm also in that point where, because I've got that, my flat fee and my furnishings calculator, because I have those numbers. If someone says to me, we're going to build a 6,000 square foot house and we want to spend X on it, I can pop those numbers into my calculator and I can say, this is the number that I need you to be thinking budget wise for it to work with my aesthetic and my natural inclination to design. So I'm not saying we're going to, like, every job I design doesn't have all marble and all upgraded lights and all wide plank floors, but there are going to be upgrades in there, and there are going to be custom window treatments and beautiful rugs. And if this isn't your ballpark number for a 6,000 square foot house, we're probably not a fit. And
Mm.
nothing you can say about, but I've been following you for years. Like, nothing you can say about that is going to make me step aside, because I have data that shows that this is the number that we're going to end up at. And it is crazy. We have been using that calculator for years and years. And at the end of the job, when we do our financial analysis, like, our final number on hours spent on the job lines up with our design fees, and our final number of total receipts for furnishings and all of that lines up with our estimate. Like,
Mm.
it's because it's coming from real data, and
Right.
because we have, we always work with window works, we always work with the same stone guy, we always work with the same glass guy, so there are averages in there.
Right.
Yeah.
So good. It's so good. I love you. I mean, that's one thing, you know, even before your transition, from one business model to the other, you always worked with your data. I know that for to be true.
Mhm.
And it's just a matter of looking at the data in different ways and pulling higher level information out of it and using it in more effective ways, right? And so this calculator that you mentioned, I gotta believe it's part of the standard, right?
Oh yes, oh
Yeah.
yes.
So, so tell us a little bit more about the standard. So we know that it's basically, a high level luxury design business in a box, right? Like click and put it over there. But give us a little bit more, because we do have a lot new listeners, Sandra, that haven't heard some of the other episodes about the standard.
Awesome. Yes. So, well, and if it's okay with you, Lou, I brought a few tidbits from members, and I think they tell it
Mm.
best. So I have Aaron Hoggerud of Design says, before enrolling in the standard, I had spent months investing in my company's marketing. I knew who my ideal client was, but I didn't feel prepared to take on luxury clients, right? So this is exactly what I was talking about.
Mm.
Now she's saying, I could not be more pleased with everything in the program. It is what I've been waiting for. The detail that is given is like nothing I've ever seen.
Mm.
So her final comment, clients are thrilled to have everything up front, pricing, contracts, etc., and fully trust me to execute their project. So it's one of those things where I'm now watching their firms go through the transition that I went through
Mm.
without the small ball curled up rocking under their desk, which is fabulous.
Or crying in airport lines.
Yeah, like, you know, all the bottles of wine. Let's just go there, shall we? Ugh, it was a tough time. But I'm watching them make that same shift, that finally, after all that heartache and then that work, and that, just huge transition. I'm watching their businesses do that in like 6 months. And it's,
Mm.
3 months, depending on how quickly they implement and, how big their workload is and how long it takes to get it into their business. But it is feeding my soul to watch designer after designer and business after business kind of go through that metamorphosis.
And it's so I mean, just gratifying, right? To have help someone cut the line, basically, right? Like it's
Yes.
like your Disney Fast Pass. Go straight to the front of the line. Get right on that great ride, right?
That was the whole idea. And it was, again, I didn't do it for that idea, but after it was all done and I watched myself be able to spend more time with my children, take a trip with my husband and actually turn my phone off, and I was like, "Oh, this design firm is humming." And
Mm.
clients were thrilled. I mean, our communication level is 1,000 times stronger than what we were doing before. And it I was standing outside of, a design conference talking to some of my design people, and everybody was chatting and giving advice and talking, and I was saying, well, what about, what about doing a flat fee and putting all that in front so you don't, the projects were falling apart during execution. They
Mm.
were saying, oh, we don't need you anymore. And I was like, well, what if you built all of that fee into the original fee, and therefore there would be no value in getting rid of you, and you could see the project all the way through. And it just was conversation after conversation, and it was like all of a sudden, do you think you could send me a copy of your agreement? And I resisted the idea of individual one-on-one coaching because I already had a high touch customer service one-on-one
Right,
business.
right,
So
right.
then we came up with the standard.
No, I love it. I love it. It's funny because I may have said it on some of your past episodes, but it reminds me of the way my Doma Studio was created. I guarantee you
Mhm.
I probably said it. So if you've heard the other episodes, because it's the same thing. It's an interior designer who is perfecting their own process and with their boots on the ground doing the things, tweaking and really understanding what is necessary, what is the next step, and how is it executed, and who is the one to do it, and then getting through and creating it for yourself and going, I could help a lot of my friends with this, right? And that
Exactly.
was exactly what Sarah Daniele did with my Doma Studio. She was a working interior designer, and her husband is a computer programmer or whatever the thing he is that he is. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And she was like, "Could you make it so that when I do this, this automatically happens?" He's like, "Sure." "Could you make it so that this automatically happens?" "Sure." You know what I mean? So I love it. And so when you're designers, and I also want to bring out that part, you had a little moment there, whether it was 3 months or 6 months until you're humming along. It is, it is not a magic pill. There is work when you
Yes.
do the standard. There is work, but it's work born out of experience, and there's no wasted steps. But you can't expect just the light bulb to go on. You have to put some time and energy and effort into doing it, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, it is. It's 6 modules that roll out 1 week at a time. And there's video that really goes over the why we do what we do. So examples and, me telling you the story of how I came to that, or the concept of like, don't get kicked off the job, later, like build that in, all the things, right? All the why we do it. And then we give you the actual tools to do it, to execute it, from Asana templates that walk you through the entire process to the actual flat fee calculator that you pop your data into to come up with your ideal design fees and furnishings budget per square foot, to every email template that we send to our clients, our vendors, our trades, our requests for quotes. Like, all of those bits and bobs are inside the standard. And so it is it's a lot because it's an entire design firm backbone, right? It's the
Mm-hmm.
structure behind it, it's the mindset, it's the strategy, and it's all the systems to actually execute it.
Right. I love
So
it.
it's a lot to take in, but we've just had incredible results with clients, going through it and really understanding why we do how we do, and that shift has been huge.
Mm, so good. So good. How about can you think of any other just the before and after aha moments of just what you remember hearing, or people coming back to you with success stories. I know that I've had those people sending me emails after they've taken a 6-week course with Lou University, so I gotta
Mhm.
believe you're getting those emails as well, right?
Oh yes. Oh yes. Yeah, we have I think we have a spreadsheet with like 175 positive testimonials about the
Whoa.
standard that we pull from. And we just relaunched the interiordesignstandard.com/Luann. You can check it out, and it has tons of testimonials, um, tons of case studies on that, lots of amazing feedback. I'm going to give you one more, a fun one. We just came in the other day. So Heather Ball of Heather Ball Interiors says she was looking for done for you systems that she could drop into her luxury design firm, and the interiors design standard is just that.
Mm.
And she says, if I wanted to create all of these materials myself, it would have taken me hundreds of hours. When I did the math, I realized the cost of the standard is just 20 hours of my billable time.
Whoa.
Yes. And then she says, I made my investment back in the standard back with my first project
Mm.
done the standard way.
Yeah, that's what I love. That's what I love. Look, it's not that it's inexpensive, but it is nowhere near priced at what its value is. I told you that the first time we talked about it, and you
Yes, you
told
did.
me when you were way before you were launching. You're like, "This is what I'm doing." Like, that's amazing. I'm like, "What are you charging?" And you're like, "Blah blah blah." Well, I don't know. What is it now? How much does it cost now to do it?
$3,999.
Yeah, I was like, "Wait, that needs to be about 12,000."
Yeah. Well, and I had it professionally valued because I had no idea, which is probably why we were having the conversation. And the consultant came back and told me 32,000, and I was like,
Yeah,
awesome, except for I know that I needed this program when I was a couple years in on my business,
right,
and I couldn't have pulled $32,000 out of my wallet back
right,
then. And
right.
I know who needs it, and I know, and so it's priced appropriately
Yeah.
for who could really get the most out of it.
No, it is. And the thing about it is what I love is I know that there have been, of course, there are designers that have purchased it and have come through and done the program and now run their business off of the interior design standard, and they didn't have a system in place beforehand. And that's great if you just start with your business, hit the ground running. But I'm also very aware of many designers who have come to me and said, after being in business for 15 years or 18 years or 20 years, the standard was a game changer. And what's funny is what I always find funny about that when someone shares that feedback with me is I think to myself, they're actually expressing at some level that they were surprised that it was so helpful to them with the body of experience that they had, right? That they
Hmm.
had when they purchased it. And I always think to myself, but that was exactly Sandra. She had 15 years experience and still wasn't doing it this way. Like,
Yep.
right? So it really isn't just for new interior designers by any stretch of the imagination. It's for any interior designer that is literally just fed up with
Yes.
rethinking the Wikipedia every day. Like, why am I rewriting this every day? Why don't we just do it a way that we know works, right?
Yes, I love that. And that's the difference, right? So my business for however many years it was before I had my dark night of the soul was clipping along. I was
Mm-hmm.
doing okay.
Mm-hmm.
I was making decent money. I had a lot of work. I was growing. It
Yeah.
was fine. After I hired a business consultant, a mindset coach, and a lawyer to strategically like pull apart my business and absolutely start from scratch. And I'm a business process consultant and a finance major in a previous life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that I brought that to the table as well. And instead of just flying by the seat of my pants, I brought my old eyeballs to this game,
Mm.
plus these consultants. And what we came out with, I cannot even explain the difference. Like
Mm-hmm.
I hear it every day online in like the different Facebook groups and everything. Like a lot of like, eye roll, difficult clients,
Yep.
like issues, like just issues, issues, issues. And I used to be right there with them. The grind, the difficult clients, the issues. And now I look at that and I'm like, oh, look within, look within, look within. And
Right.
it really worked.
Mm-hmm.
It really worked. And it is about approaching the problem differently instead of just complaining about the same thing over and over again forever.
Right. It's the truth, and we shouldn't gloss over one point that you made, which is your business was successful. It was. It wasn't. Look, I started this podcast based on the relationships that I had at that point. 30 years, 35 years in business with the interior designers that we worked with. I started it because I saw firms like yours that were well run, and I saw other firms that were just chaos every day, every project, years and years and years of chaos. And what I knew and I could see was just what I say in the intro of the show. The design aesthetic was not the thing that was creating the success of that firm, because there are designers that are at the absolute top of the game in the industry in creation and creativity that are not running the back end well. And so you were always, from the very first conversation I had with you, somebody that I knew was running the business side of it. And so that's the other thing. It's, if you have a firm that is doing well and you are successful and you have been in business for 15 years like Sandra, but you're not going on vacation and turning your phone off, and you are not coming home after school with your children and going, horseback riding with them, then you are not maximizing and leveraging all of the tools at your availability, because this is a tool that could change your business. That's the point of it, right?
Mm, yes, that is the point of it. We don't start businesses to work around the clock, make decent money, right?
Right.
We start businesses and become the CEO of our own business to have time freedom, right, with
Mm-hmm.
our family and take a trip, to have creative freedom, right? I know a lot of designers left whoever they were working for to go out on their own because they really wanted to express their own personal creative aesthetic. And then also financial freedom,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And financial freedom is different than doing well. Financial freedom um, is just it's a whole different perspective,
Mm-hmm.
and it is incredible to watch firm after firm after firm hit that different plateau, and they are just gleeful.
Mm-hmm.
We are just a community of designers who it's funny to watch when it hits. I have another testimony I'm going to read you because this one is really great.
Mm.
Okay, on this point, Tiffany White says of Mid City Design Group, the standard up ended up being the best investment I've made in me and my company. It was a life-changing experience. My referrals and repeat clients have doubled since implementing the processes from the standard. She goes on, but that is the
Yeah.
life-changing difference, and it's the difference, right? More free time, more creative freedom, and more financial freedom, and it literally changes your life.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing. And what's interesting is, as I know that I have watched you and admired you from the first time I met you when you were literally practically brand new out on your own to now, I see what you say to be true, right? There's, you were always doing well. Your business was doing well. You and Jay were doing well.
Mhm,
Life was good. But
mhm.
you said it there is a very big difference between financial freedom and control over it as opposed to doing well. And you're living the doing well, the financial freedom end of it, I should say, because of just like the line in the sand. There is a better way to do this, and I'm going to take the time and effort to do it. And the fact that you then made it available for, the entire community to benefit from it is just an amazing icing on the cake. And I just admire you tremendously for it.
Well, I appreciate you. I have to take it all the way back to that airport. Um, my mentor, Luann, is you are the reason that I am now obsessed with the comment look within. I mean, over and over again, that has been my biggest lesson that I've learned from you,
Mm, mm,
is that when something is going wrong in your world, in your business, in your life, you have a role in it.
mm-hmm,
Always. You
mm-hmm,
always have a role. And so to look at what could I have done to set better expectations, to communicate better, whatever it is,
mm-hmm.
insert questions, all the questions. But that I really give you an incredible amount of credit, because sitting in that airport, I could have just pissed and moaned and cried and ranted, but instead, we sat in my car for like 2.5 hours outside of your house that night because we had that conversation before we got on the plane.
Right.
We didn't sit together, right? And then
Right.
we got off the plane and we had like a 3-hour conversation between moving through the airport, getting bags, driving home. And I credit that night. That's the night that the pivot started.
Yeah. Well, I'm so grateful to be part of that journey with you and all the things that we've done together. And I remember, it's such a crazy moment. I can remember looking at you and you're there on the verge of tears, taking that like the fourth or fifth phone call over the 2 days that we were together, another client jumping ship. And I remember thinking, am I going to tell her the truth? And I went, of course you are. Of course you are. And you know what I say on the show all the time is you have to wind it back. Every mistake, every failure, everything that you do that doesn't work out the way you hoped or intended, you have to wind it back to the point where you touched something, where you did something that if you had done something different at that moment, the whole outcome would be different. And, you're internalizing that as look within, which is awesome. I love it. And for me, I say, wind it back. And I remember saying that other line to you said in the beginning. And I said, okay, 1 bad project. Okay, crazy people. 5 bad projects. I don't know, sweetie. We got to figure this out. Something is not happening here, right?
Yeah.
So, but this is also a testament to you. Because I have had conversations like this with dozens of business owners over the course of my career, and of course, way more in the last 6 years. And, a lot of people, that's why I say on the show, I don't like a yeah, but girl. Because a lot of people go, yeah, but this person was really out of line. Yeah, but. And I'm just like, see, no, I can't help you now. I can't help you. It's like the client that says the budget from the builder is 100 and you're saying it's really going to be 200 and they're going, yeah, but we can do it. It's like, no, you see, we can't. You're not my ideal client. You're not my ideal friend. You're not my ideal conversation. Luann is out. Like, my next line is, okay, I'm not your mama. I don't have to fix you.
Right? Yep.
But you were willing to do the hard work, and then you did. You dug in and you did it, and the interior design standard is the result, and we're all the better for it. So give us the website again, because I always screw it up if it has the or it doesn't have the.
Yep, it's the list. Okay, it is. You can find all the info at interiordesignstandard.com/Luann.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, Sandra, I just love you. Love you, and I love our time together. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much.
Well, I have to say, that Miss Sandra Funk, she is one of our stars, our highlights of this podcast. And as I said to you in the introduction, her first show in this episode on this podcast has more than 10,000 downloads at this time. And now you know why. So take this information, go to interiordesignstandard.com/Luann, look at it, understand it, see if it's right for you, and decide to be excellent. Thank you so much for joining me again today. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks, your resource for custom window treatments and awnings. To learn how we can help you on your next interior design project, go to www.windowworks-nj.com. And if you're interested in working with me on your business, either through masterminds or one-on-one coaching, or you want to know how to get my book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, or you just want to know what's going on in the podcast land and where I'm going to be, all of that is found at luannigara.com. Thank you so much. Have an excellent day.